So this is Danny Flexon here for SecondsOut. Delighted to be joined by the Scottish heavyweight champion, Nick Campbell. Nick, how you doing?
Danny, I'm good. I'm good. Just finished training this afternoon, so resting up now. But other than that, all good. Just trying to get ready and hopefully have a date in the next couple of weeks.
You became the first Scottish heavyweight champion in a long, long time on a huge card as well at the Hydro in Glasgow. Undercard, of course, of Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall. How do you reflect on that experience now? Not just the fight itself, but the whole occasion.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Listen, how many Scottish fighters get an opportunity to perform in front of a massive crowd like that in my home city, live on Sky Sports. Doesn't really get any bigger. On the undercard, the undisputed world champions fight. So, it was incredible. The fight. Listen, I've got a lot to learn. I was in against a tough, experienced opponent in Jay. Maybe a lot of people criticise him for the way he conducts himself and the lifestyle he leads, but one thing about him is he's tough as nails. So it was a great fight, great learning opportunity for me. Took loads from it, and we move on.
Was it frustrating at any point because you were in charge for the most part, but he was very stubborn, as you said, very tough, and wouldn't seem to go away right up until the finish?
Yeah, like I knew that if I just stuck to task, that I would get him out of there eventually. But he's never been stopped before, and he's got a head like a breeze block. So I knew it was going to, I knew it was going to take some punishment. But listen, I think considering where I'm at in my career and my experience, that's my 19th fight as a pro or amateur. So coming in and against a guy who had the same amount of fights as Josh Taylor, he's nowhere near the same level as Josh Taylor. Don't get me wrong, but as a pro, he's experienced. So I listen. I think considering where I'm at in my career, there was a lot of pressure. Obviously, with the time I'm on, you're on Sky Sports, you're live in front of thousands of people. So listen, I done my best and applied myself as best I could, and that's all I can do.
Given your background in another sport, there's obviously always going to be skeptics out there. How much does it mean to you to secure that first professional title?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I think I actually had some of the members of the last fella that had it, I think it was George Stern, he was called, contact me. And it's funnily enough, they're massive Glasgow Warriors supporters, the team that I used to play for back as a pro. So they had kind of wished me the best, and they hoped that I would win it because the tie-in, they'd watched me playing rugby, and now they were going to watch me fight for their father's title. So it meant a lot to me. Meant a lot to me. There's history there. I'm Scottish through and through. I know it's only an area belt, but Scotland's a country, so I'm proud to represent my country. And like I say, it meant a lot to fight in front of the home fans. I'd sold a lot of tickets for the fight. There was a massive crowd there, and I couldn't have really wrote it any better myself.
There's two big boxer shows in a row. You kicked off your career on a big matchroom show headlined by Conor Benn. And then in between, you've travelled abroad as well. You've packed quite a lot in for, 5 fights. You must be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, listen, like I said, I'm relatively inexperienced still. I've got a lot of learning to do, and time's not on my side, so I need to move fast and get as much experience as I possibly can. Like I said, when I started boxing, I just wanted to see how far I could go as an amateur. And now that I've come in as a pro, my mindset is exactly the same. I want to apply myself as best I can and see how far I can go as a professional. So to get the first title definitely ticks a box, and we move on, see how far we can go again.
You're still pretty young for a heavyweight, I think it's fair to say. I don't know if that makes you feel any better. Why have we not seen you back out since? Obviously, that was back in February. Really good win on the national stage on TV as well. Why have you not been back out since?
I actually picked up a little injury in training, unfortunately, and it kind of sidelined me for a couple of months now. Not nothing that I can't recover from, but it was a wee hand injury I picked up, and I was just unable to, train fully, punch properly, just for a couple of months there. So I had to give that time to heal up, and that's the only reason why. Otherwise, I'd be doing back out hopefully another 2, maybe even 3 times, and that, well, probably not 3, but at least another twice. in between. So, but listen, that's professional sport. These things happen. We're not all invincible. I'm definitely not. So when it comes to picking up injuries, I had a fair few in my rugby days as well. So I know how to deal with it, took it my stride and just recovered from it as quickly as possible. I'm back into camp now. This is my 3rd week back in training full on. Not since February, but in terms I've been back to doing everything. So I'm feeling good. I'm over the injury and ready to crack on and hopefully get a date as soon as possible.
Do you have any idea when that might be? Likely kind of October sort of time?
Ask Mark Dunlop. And I encourage you to ask Mark Dunlop to get on his case for me so that he can get me a date. But I know me and Mark both sat down, and my coach Dan as well, and targeted the end of September, beginning of October. But obviously that depends on what shows are on and where they are and opponents and stuff like that. But like I say, I'm just preparing with that mindset that I'm going to be fighting the end of September, hopefully. So that's where I'm at.
And what's kind of the path for you now? I know Nathan Gorman, Fabio Wardley are going to fight for the vacant British title at some point in the autumn. Would you be thinking about the winner of that perhaps next year, or are you looking to get some more experienced international opposition? Learning fights, if you like.
I think what's Fabio Wardley 13-0?
Maybe 14.
Yeah, I think I've got a wee bit more learning to do. Definitely down the line, that's something I want to be targeting, is fighting for a British title. But I think I've got a wee bit to go and a wee bit of learning to do, and definitely some more experience to get. But listen, I want another wee step up again against a tough opponent, somebody who's going to pose me questions and challenge me. Not somebody who's coming to get beat, somebody who's coming to have a go. So that's what I want. I just want to step it up every time, get as much experience as I can. And when I'm ready to put myself in that position, go for it.
Do you watch kind of some of the other heavyweight prospects and see maybe who they're fighting, who's testing them, who's more of a walkover and stuff, and kind of think, yeah, he'd be good for me. He could give me a few rounds, that kind of thing?
Aye, definitely. I won't name names or anything like that, but I watch all the young heavyweights coming through. I look at their opponents and I think to myself, how would I take that on? How what would I adapt my game plan to try and suit who I was fighting? And like I say, there's a lot of good young heavyweights coming through, so it's good to keep an eye on these guys as well and look at what they are doing and compare it to myself always. But I'm only in competition with myself. Having said that, but it's always good to keep an eye on what it's about, who's fighting who's doing well, and who could possibly challenge me questions. So I let Mark sort my opponents, but I do keep a close eye on everything going on, especially in the British heavyweights.
Have you had much opportunity to spar more experienced opposition as well? Because at this stage of your career, I guess you'll be learning more in the gym than you are in the ring.
Yeah, I was actually over in Scotland preparing for Jay with Big Martin Bacoli for a couple of Martin's class. So I have a really good relationship with him and Billy as well. And I learn loads when I'm down there. It's tough. The big man can fight. So that's probably my hardest sparring to date. And I've obviously got Tommy McCarthy, although he's a cruiserweight, over here when I'm training in Belfast. And me and him do quite a lot of rounds, more technical. But Tommy's a cracking boxer and very, very experienced. So he's good for me in that sense. He challenges me technically. But no, going forward, I'll be looking to get as much sparring as I possibly can. I know that Mark's talking to a few of the different camps and seeing who they need in and if there's any potential to get me across for some sparring with different people. So yeah, like I say, it's all part of the journey and it's all part of learning. Fingers crossed, hopefully I'll be involved in a little bit more of that in the near future.
What did you find most challenging, or what did you learn the most from when sparring Martin?
You know what? It's about the pro and amateur is very different. It's about adapting your style. There's little small, things in the way you hold your feet, your positioning, stepping back, when to step back, when to step in, shot variation and stuff like that. It's not, amateur, you just go out and you try to outbox somebody for 3 rounds. Pro's totally different. So that's been the biggest thing. And especially against somebody like Martin, whose style is very much a professional style. So and listen, he can fight, that man. So you're learning every time you go in. you're getting clipped, and then you're learning that if you don't cover up when you're in this position, if you don't move out of the, you get hurt. So you've got to learn. You don't have a choice.
There's a huge heavyweight fight, of course, taking place on Saturday out in Saudi Arabia, although involving a Brit in Anthony Joshua, bidding to regain his world heavyweight titles against Oleksandr Usyk. Before I ask you about that, what did you make of the first fight between them?
Yeah, listen, I think we all knew how good Oleksandr Usyk is as a boxer. The big question was, could he do that at heavyweight against the bigger man? And he answered that question. As a fan and a spectator, I kind of question Josh's tactics, because he has all the physical advantages over Usyk. The one advantage he doesn't have is boxing ability. And I felt he could have imposed himself more and tried to knock him out. I thought that was the only way he could really win. He's not going to outbox him. Having said that, it's easy for me to sit here and say that. I'm sure it's a much different task when you get in there and you're in front of the man. That would have been the only thing for me. I think the change up in trainer is interesting, because obviously Josh has reflected back on that fight and maybe looked at the information he was getting in the corner and went, this isn't what I need to beat this guy. He's had that change up, so I'm interested to see how that plays out. From Usyk, I don't really see him changing much. What he's done is proved and tested, and I don't know, do they have something like 250 odd amateur fights, and he's fought however many times as a pro, and he's only been beat a handful of times. So I really can't see him changing his game plan. It's about whoever's fighting him adapting to change their game plan. But listen, I genuinely hope that Joshua goes out and does the business, and I think he can if he goes in with that game plan. It's a difficult task, but I really hope the big man brings the belts back to Britain, and then there's a few interesting nights ahead, I think. And I don't know if Tyson's retired or not. I think it very much depends on what happens in this next fight.
Does Joshua, is it mindset as much as his physical game plan? Because to come back from it was a pretty clear defeat, I think it's fair to say. It's not like Andy Ruiz where he got caught. He was dominated in patches.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say is, Anthony Joshua's a winner in life. You look at where he came from nothing. And now he's a multi-millionaire, adored all over the world by millions of people. He's, one of those athletes, wherever he is on the planet, people recognise him. So a lot of that's down to his mindset. He wouldn't be there if he wasn't, had a bit of grit and determination in him. And I do think that if he goes in there with the right mindset and the right game plan, backed up with a mindset, he can definitely do it. But you're probably right. It does depend. It must be a daunting prospect going in there against a guy that you can't outbox. So you've got to go in there and get him into a dogfight and look to get rid of him. But listen, the big man's been there. He's a two-time world champion. He's achieved everything in the sport, and I think you can't really question his mindset knowing that.
As we alluded to earlier, you've already performed as a boxer in front of big crowds, and as a rugby player even more so. When you see things like this Joshua Usyk event, fight week's obviously in full swing now, does it get your juices flowing? Is it something you want to get to in boxing where you're at these massive events?
100%. 100%. It's history. I mean, in 10, 15 years' time, we'll all be talking about this. It'll be, Sky Sports documentaries about Joshua Usyk too, and what happened and how it all played out. And to be involved in an event like that's history, would be incredible. I think any boxer who gets into the sport, they dream of having nights like that or being involved in nights like that. So without a doubt, I guarantee it gets any boxer on the planet's juices flowing when they see things like that, and they see the crowd and the exposure and everything that goes into it. So for me, yeah, 100%. When I watch it, it makes me want to get out there and fight.
Great stuff. Now, before I let you go, I've asked this before, just people who haven't seen the previous interviews, how can they find you on social media?
So my Twitter and Instagram is all the same. It's Nick, the letter A, Campbell 1. Nick A. Campbell 1 on Twitter and Instagram. Give me a follow.
Brilliant stuff. Mate, really, really appreciate your time as always. And yeah, let's catch up again when you've got a fight date in books.
Danny, always a pleasure. Would love to. And keep up the good work, mate. I'll stay tuned in.
Take care.